You're watching Mainland News. I'm Joya Devine. In today's news, men appear in court on serious assault charges, woman who on-sold prescription medicine charged, engine blows on Arateri's return trip from Singapore, Tasman climbs economic scoreboard to 4th place, Mayor discusses Nelson's parking issues, and MP talks about the closure of the Murchison Information Centre. The 40-year-old male victim of a serious assault in central Nelson last weekend, who was flown to Wellington Hospital in a critical condition after sustaining serious head injuries, was reportedly on Friday said to be in a stable condition. Two men, a 19-year-old and 27-year-old, were charged with wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm, appeared in court on Tuesday. The attack took place outside a residence in Rutherford Street, near Van Diemen Street, around 11:30 p.m. on Saturday night. According to police, they were not looking for anyone else in connection to the assault. Area Commander Inspector Steve Greeley said the victim and the offenders were loosely connected. The investigation is only in the early stages and are still continuing. Mainland intern Carly Danner asked members of the public whether they felt Nelson had an issue with violence.
So do you believe Nelson has issues with violence, both street or domestic?
Nah, none at all. I don't reckon there's any at all.
Yes, but I feel it's probably a problem nationwide, not just in Nelson.
I think there is, but it's always hidden. You never know until you speak to people. When you talk to somebody, you do find out there is problems at home.
Boy, what I saw on TV the other night, yes, I think there is with the young ones. I do think so, yes, yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
It's getting better though. It is getting better under the new regime as far as the police go. So they've cleaned it up quite a bit.
Definitely, yes, I do.
Yes, I do. I think that Nelson has a lot of violence and a lot of domestic.
Completely. I mean, the binge drinking has got out of hand. There's too many young ones out there that are going absolutely hard out on the alcohol, the drugs, and when the legals were here, I'm so pleased that they've gone because they screw up these kids.
So do you think people drinking alcohol before they go out causes more issues?
Yeah, I guess it does, but it's only because it's a lot cheaper.
Yep, they definitely try and preload and probably binge drink before they even head out.
Yes, I do. Back from my day, yes, I do, yes.
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, scary thought, really.
Yeah, no, very much so. Yeah, everyone preloads, it's cheaper. Then when they go to a bar, they're only buying one or two drinks. So, of course, the bars don't make much money out of it, but, of course, the bottle stores do.
Of course it does, they can see it.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with that. It sure does. Yeah, there's a lot of really drunk people around very early at night, not just late, but, they're drinking on the way to town and, so...
It does, because they can get it for so much cheaper. Then what they do is they go into town, they're absolutely cut, and then that's when all the fights break out because they're already drunk.
Kiwi Rail sources have told New Zealand First that the Cook Strait ferry Aratiri has blown an engine on its return voyage from Singapore and was on Thursday approaching Australia at a reduced speed. New Zealand First leader Winston Peters says the vessel was reportedly down to 10 knots and it needed to refuel in the near future. Mr Peters says he's calling on the Transport Minister Jerry Brownlee to immediately explain what is happening with the ferry and to explain why this problem has followed a supposed repair job in Singapore. Winston Peters says Mr Brownlee has presided over the shambles for far too long. The Tasman region has staged an impressive climb up the rankings on the latest ASB Regional Economic Scoreboard to 4th place. The main driver was growth in retail sales that outstripped every other part of the country. Canterbury took out the top spot on the scoreboard, with Auckland closely behind in second equal place with Otago. Retail trade in Tasman grew 14% in the March quarter, whereas in Nelson it dipped 5%. The report shows Nelson remains in the bottom half of the rankings due to soft retail spending and construction activity. I spoke with Mayor Rachel Rees earlier this week and discussed the issue of parking in the Nelson CBD. Now, Nick Smith has also suggested more and more of the retail spenders going to Richmond. Recent data perhaps suggests that this is true. Are you concerned this may be the case?
What we've seen is the latest figures come through that are showing a plus 14% increase for Richmond, and over the first quarter of this year, a minus 5% decrease for Nelson City. So I think we're definitely seeing some change. We're seeing the retailers that I've spoken to, and I've talked to many retailers over the last few months, to people in hospitality, to business owners, to building owners, and they say to me, Rachel, we're actually at a point where we need to focus some energy on the heart of our city. So yeah, I think we are seeing some impact. You know, Kmart's opened, and I've talked to my friends. They've said, oh look, we were needed some pajamas for the kids, and we popped out to Kmart. While they were there, they did their vegetable shopping as well, and popped down to the body shop and the mall. So yeah, it's having an impact, I believe.
Yes, and I guess the bone of contention is the issue of parking. So where are things at with that? You obviously want to make progress on that issue.
I do, and I intend to bring a report to Council next Thursday, proposing some changes over this winter period. We've got a parking study underway, and that will bring back some ideas, and it'll be consulted on with the community later this year. But right now, what I'm hearing from the business people in Nelson City is that they need a change immediately. They need a reprieve, and I think that the changes that were made to the parking regime last year had some unintended consequences. There is a reason, I believe, why those sorts of decisions should be made at the council table, because they are big policy decisions. Parking is there to support the businesses in the CBD. They pay a lot on their commercial rates. Those inner city ratepayers and the ones in Stoke, in the commercial area in Stoke, pay the highest rates in Nelson, and they need services that support their businesses. My objective is really simple. I want more people coming into the centre of Nelson, more people coming in to enjoy being in the public spaces, coming to the galleries, coming to the museum, going out to restaurants, going to the movies, shopping, just having a great time. And whatever we can do to support that, I'm prepared to look at.
So the idea of free parking, is that feasible?
Yes, I think it is. I think we have to look at the situation we're in now. So we're not at a neutral position, in my view. We're at sort of, at minus 100, we're not at zero, and we need to get back at least to a level playing field. So we need to do something to create a change. I don't think parking is the only thing that's important. I think promoting our CBD is really important. I think encouraging more people to live in the CBD is important. I think having some more green space in the CBD would be great, so that if you go in, there's somewhere to sit, somewhere to enjoy being outdoors in our gorgeous sunshine that we have most days. So yeah, I think there's an opportunity here for the winter. Do I think free parking long term is the right solution for Nelson? No, I don't. But I think right now we need a game changer.
In turn, Raj Agarwal asked some of the people on the streets of Nelson for their thoughts about parking.
What do you think about the current pay to use parking in the city?
Oh, that's a real dodgy one. I understand that Nelson City Council need to make their money. I also understand that retailers, and I'm a retailer as well, that we need the money, we need the customers. And I've had so many customers standing in front of me going, I've got to go, I can't stay around because my car's going to run out of meterage, and it's a tricky one.
I think it's too steep, and I think the 2 hours free would be a great thing, and it's got to come, otherwise the town's going to go to sleep, isn't it? We've known a Sleepy Hollow, we don't want to go back to that name again.
It's reasonable. It's only like a few dollars for an hour, so it's okay.
We think it's okay. But we have a ticket which we bought from the Nelson Council, which entitles us to 1 hour free parking a day wherever.
How much was that ticket?
That's a 1-year ticket.
I travel in by bus, so I don't really know what's involved.
I don't think it's really too much of a problem. I can always find a park somewhere and walk. It's nothing compared to Auckland.
This week, Murchison Information Centre closed its doors for what may end up to be the last time. Chrissy Small caught up with MP-elect for Tasman, Damien O'Connor, to talk about the reduced funding grant of $12,000 that the Murchison Information Centre was given by the Tasman District Council. This was after the centre lost its original $35,000 in operational funding to run tourism services for the Murchison region from the council, which was paid out annually via Nelson Tasman Tourism.
What are your thoughts about the future of tourism in Murchison after the closure of the Murchison Visitor Information Centre due to the lack of TDC funding support?
Well, I'm really concerned, and I called in to see staff at the Information Centre last week. They can't see any way clear from what is an impending closure, and I guess I've been connected to Murchison there for a long time through tourism, probably the best part of 30 years. They've done a lot to build up the tourism operators and their clientele and their reputation. And of course you do need an information centre that will give people who just drop by an opportunity to find out more about what is happening locally, and that will go. And I think it's a very backward step for a region that sits on the doorstep of Kahurangi National Park. Is probably the whitewater centre for New Zealand, and there's a lot of emphasis on water. We've got great rivers there, and unfortunately for the sake of a relatively small amount of money, it seems as though the information centre will close.
So Damien, what do you believe that this decision will cost the community as far as jobs, not only in the immediate but long term?
Well, I know there are 2 or 3 jobs and probably a couple of part-time positions there, so they will go, but it's actually the flow-on effect and the build-up that there has been in and around the tourism operators. There's new buildings going up, each year they get, increase in numbers. That's potentially where we'll see the long-term damage, and so I have spoken directly with the Mayor. I've spoken with the CEO of TDC to try and encourage them to find a way through this. At this stage it's a bit of an impasse, but I still live in hope, and I've said to them at Murchison, never say never, so hopefully we can keep it going in some way.
Okay. So what, in your opinion, can reasonably replace the centre for the $12,000 that TDC are offering the Murchison district?
Well, I think that's the frustration. They've built up a business there. They do AA licence, or the people doing the connection for that. They can provide more services for TDC at that office, I'm sure. Library services were spoken of, although that would probably come at the expense of another community facility. So it's not simple. I know there's been a lot of work done, but I just would urge TDC to try a little harder, because this is a very valuable place, not only for Tasman, for Murchison, actually for the West Coast as well. And I've been thinking of talking to people down there who can maybe find a way to support the Murchison Centre, because as people travel south, they want information about the West Coast. As they travel north, they want information about Able Tasman and Nelson. So it is quite a key location for people who are just planning the next day's activities.
Right.
Meanwhile, guest nights have surged the length and breadth of the country, the Nelson Tasman region being no exception. The latest accommodation monitor shows guest nights lifted 17.2% in April 2014 compared with April 2013, with 25,000 more visitors staying overnight in Nelson Tasman than in April last year. A new political party has been initiated called the Anti-1080 Party. It's been started by Nelson man Bruce Wallace and is said to have the required 500 members. The election is looming and concerns of low voter turnout in the last election, with nearly a fifth of the registered population not bothering to vote, is on the minds of MPs as time is starting to run out for young first voter registrations. This week in Motueka, Chrissy Small caught up with West Coast Tasman MP-elect Damien O'Connor to talk about getting people out to exercise their right to take part in the democratic process in this upcoming election.
Now, Damien, we're coming up to the election. How do we get the young people to vote?
Well, I'm not allowed to tell you who to vote for, but I can tell you that you should all vote. And I'm holding up an enrolment form here. There were 800,000 people who were enrolled but didn't vote in the last election. Now, we hope that those people will vote, but prior to that, you have to get onto the roll. And I know from my office in Motueka, we're providing these, we're getting out, trying to encourage people to get on the roll, check that you're on the roll, and then, that you vote. And whatever that is, whoever you support, be a part of the democratic process, because people around the world, give their lives up and fight for the right to have a vote and be part of democracy. We take it for granted, and it's about time we, recognised how valuable it is, and I just hope that people vote.
Now, what about overseas people who've got family overseas who are on the electoral roll? How do we get the message to them?
Send them an email. I mean, most people now will be well connected. They should be aware of the election coming up. They should be aware of the systems that they need to use to get online, to be registered, and then to make their votes. So if you're a Kiwi and you're passionate about your country, then you should contribute to the system and who runs it, and vote.
Mainland intern Carly Danner went out with a crew to ask people if they were going to vote in this election.
Are you going to vote in this year's election?
Yeah, for the Magilligani Serious Party. That's the way I do it.
Yes, definitely.
I will, yes. Oh, I just moved up from Christchurch. We've only been here 2 weeks, so yep.
I guess we will, yeah.
Yep, very much so.
Yes, I will.
I always do, yeah.
Yes, and I'll vote green.
In the studio this week, I caught up with Nelson Mayor Rachel Rees to discuss a local pertinent issue.
Issue over the Rocks Road shared walkway cycleway has come to the Works and Infrastructure Committee, and there's a recommendation to Council that we go out to the community and consult on a couple of options. You'll remember a couple of years ago a boulevard for Rocks Road was promoted, and the budget for that was set at, I think, around $5.7 million. Well, actually that budget was quite unrealistic. The numbers that have come forward range, from 8 million to 35 million, depending on what configuration you put together. Now, the Works and Infrastructure Committee looked at the option that went up to 35 million and said they just don't think that's affordable for Nelson. And I think that's reasonable. I'd say that's not affordable for Nelson. But they do want to go and consult the community over the other two options, so that'll come to Council for a decision shortly. My view on this is reasonably well known. I really support improving our waterfront. I think we have one of the most magnificent waterfronts in New Zealand. Do I think it's the place for a really busy state highway? No, I don't. I just don't think that is the place. If you were designing a city, you wouldn't put your logging trucks, your really heavy transport around a waterfront where people want to be there and enjoying the space and the outdoors, walking and cycling. And in the end, I think what we've got, and the officers' reports to the committee were quite clear on this, is that there are going to have to be some compromises. There are going to be some winners and losers, because you can't actually fit everything into that space in an efficient way. The proposals, as I understand them, that are coming forward include greater access across the state highway, because that's something that people of Nelson have been saying to us for some time. We want to be able to cross from one side to the other. So there are crossing points proposed. Now that has a consequence. If you're taking a large truck down around that waterfront, you're trying to get to the port, and you've got people, coming across pedestrian crossings, the potential is you're going to be first gear, second gear, all the way from Te Hunanui to the port. Now look, I think we need to put that out to the public and say, how do you feel about that? I'm prepared to hear that. I've got my views around the future roading network for Nelson. I think we do need greater network security. I agree with Nick Smith on that. I've looked at the options. The best option that I can see for creating that network security is to connect the Southern Arterial.
Do you feel that this issue is going to go round and round in circles for still quite some time? Because let's face it, it has been talked about for a long time, Rachel, hasn't it?
It has been, and I think we're getting to the point where we need to make a call on this. So I am looking to the people of the region, and there I would say to the wider region, because that roading network affects not just the people in Nelson City, it does affect the people who are the economic producers out on the Waimea Plains who need to get their product to port. It affects the forestry companies. It is important that we hear from all of the people about what supports a good roading network. Now,
so how can people get back to you about that?
Well, what we'll be doing is the recommendation to council is that we go out and consult on the Rocks Road options. I can't say to you exactly what the council is going to do when it comes up to the meeting, but I would think it's likely that those options will go out to be consulted on with the public. The question I think I would like to put to the public of Nelson at some point is, do they or don't they want to have a third arterial route into the city? Because that is the debate that we've had over and over and over again. But if we're going to have that debate, I also need some commitment from central government, because while our local Member of Parliament has been very supportive of a Southern Arterial, the New Zealand Transport Agency and the Minister of Transport haven't been forthcoming with any funding. And this is a state highway, so we need to look to central government to give us some direction on this. We need to look to them for some money. I'm not prepared to front the construction of a main arterial route for this for a future state highway out of ratepayer funds. That money needs to come out of Wellington.
Sounds fair enough.
Yeah, at least a significant contribution. I mean, we do have funding that we put into roading programs, but I would be looking for that direction to come from the Minister of Transport, from our local Member of Parliament, from Cabinet itself.
Meanwhile, a safety investigation into the pedestrian crossing on Haven Road outside Auckland Point School has found the best way to make it safer is to reduce that section of road to one lane. Intern Raj Agarwal asked Works and Infrastructure Committee Chair Eric Davey about the decision.
Mr. Davey, can you tell us the latest on the Auckland Point School Crossway?
Yeah, because of the number of accidents that have occurred down there, and there's been 4 involving accidents at the actual pedestrian crossing, we did an investigation, found out how many vehicles a day, how many people were crossing the crossing, what the capacity of the road is, and it was decided that we should look at some alternative means of making it safe for both the pedestrians to cross the pedestrian crossing and for the traffic travelling along the road.
And can you just explain how long this investigation has been going along and the timetable for this whole thing?
This has been raised over a number of years that this has caused a problem, and with the Trafalgar Centre and people parking in the Auckland Point School and wanting to cross the pedestrian crossing to get to the Trafalgar Centre, for people wanting to use the new walkway that's being established, but it has been ongoing for a number of years, the problems, and so finally a decision was made to do something about it.
And obviously safety is the number one priority, but do you foresee any traffic problems with it getting limited down to one lane?
No, we believe that the capacity of the road is such that it will be able to handle the change without any issues. It still goes back to 2 lanes approaching well in advance of the 2 roundabouts, both at Halifax Street and Q2 Drive. So it's just a matter of down to the 1 lane for negotiating the pedestrian crossing, and then you can choose which lane you want to go into at the roundabout. So it's a sensible solution for a problem, but there is plenty of road width for the future, so if it doesn't work, we can go back, but we have to do something to safeguard the people using the pedestrian crossing.
And do you know exactly a timetable for when changes could actually start being made?
No, I haven't got that timetable yet because the design has got to be drawn. It will be done. Look, I'd only be guessing at when, but I would envisage before Christmas anyway.
Mr. Davey, thanks so much for joining Mainland TV today.
Not a problem.
Thanks a
okay.
lot.
Radio. Cheers. Bye.
Nelson Police have this week charged a 53-year-old local woman with unlawful supply of a Class B controlled drug. The arrest comes after several months of investigation by police, which culminated in a search warrant and subsequent arrest of the woman on Thursday. The drugs that were subject to this inquiry were prescription medicines that the woman had legitimately obtained, and it's alleged that she has then on-sold them. Detective Sergeant Chris Roberts of the Nelson Police says this arrest should serve as a warning to others that the practice of on-selling controlled drugs obtained by lawful prescription will be treated no differently than other unlawful drug dealing. The woman appeared in the Nelson District Court on Thursday, charged with supplying a Class B controlled drug. After the break, we'll bring you the latest weather update and some events and happenings coming up from around the region.
Hi, I'm John McMillan at the Nelson Power Tool Centre. We have great prices on all the top quality brands of power tool. Tools and equipment at our showroom 146 Tahunanui Drive in Nelson. The Nelson Power Tool Centre, the specialists that stand behind and service what we sell.
Discover the Belgrove Tavern just 20 minutes south of Richmond on State Highway 6 for meals, functions, weddings, barbecues and garden bar with lots of room for kids. Come and see us.
Hi, my name's Ian Mortimer. Mortimer Auto Upholstery is your one-stop shop for all your upholstery needs. We do car and boat interiors, boat canopies, ute tonneau covers, canvas and PVC fabrication. Call in and see us in Oxford Mews, 72 Oxford Street, Richmond.
Monaco Midwinter Marathon is coming soon. Start at the Monaco Domain and follow the cycle way out to Rabbit Island, loop Rabbit Island, and return for a total distance of 42.2 kilometers. All runners and walkers are welcome. No entry fee, but a donation to the Mental Health Foundation is appreciated. Walkers start at 8 a.m., runners start at 9 a.m. Pre-registration will be available at the Shoe Clinic at Bridge Street on Saturday, 21st of June from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Deep End is Nelson's improvised comedy show at the Theatre Royale. Take a team of intrepid improvisers, plunge them into a whirlpool of audience suggestions, and see if they sink or swim. You'll be in for a great night of comedy in the style of Whose Line Is It Anyway? The show starts Friday, June 20th at 10 p.m. and is for all ages. Richmond will host big screen movies and old-time dance, cooking demonstrations, fashion parades, street sport exhibitions, and fitness classes to entice people to come out of winter hibernation. The Winter Eruption Festival celebrates all things winter and is scheduled to take place between the 23rd and the 29th of June. For information, phone 03-543-8400. And that's your latest for the news sources for this week.
On behalf of the team here at Mainland Television News, thanks for joining us. We'll bring you the latest news and events from around the region again tomorrow.
supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.
Nelson Tire Center. Great prices, great service. Buy your own Bryford trailer. All types, all sizes. See Colin Douglas for your tires and batteries.